You know, I do the lot. I'm a little bit woo, a little bit wee, a little bit... I don't think anything I will.
Minder the TV show was a comedy drama created by Leon Griffiths, starring, amongst others, Dennis Waterman and George Cole. It went on for 10 series and was rebooted for an 11th series, which starred Shane Ritchie and a guy whose name is the best thing I've ever heard, Lex Shrapnel. That's the kind of name where you just take two random words out of the dictionary and stick them together. I can't really say much more on the TV series itself, as I never got round to watching it. I was most likely too young to watch it when it first released, and as such, the game never came my way either. Because, as with all things in the UK in the 80s, if it was on TV, and it was popular, and the license was relatively cheap to get a hold of, you can guarantee someone was making a micro game out of it. These weren't always successful. In fact, they invariably were the worst games to grace these systems, from Grange Hill to EastEnders to Supergran. If it was a game attached to a TV property, it was more than likely going to be a ripe bag of mints. Colour me surprised then when I found out that it's exceptionally popular with friend of the channel, One Credit Classics, and his audience. And when I say exceptionally popular, I mean there's hours upon hours of footage of Minder playthroughs replete with One Credit Classics' special brand of excited, enthusiastic pros.
Arthur Daly. What's your name? Scabby Ring Piece or something. Clunt. George Clunt. George Clunt. George Clunt. George Clunt. George Clunt. Rabbit hutches for sale. Rabbit hutches for sale. Rabbit hutches for sale. That's rabbit hutches, right? It is, you know. I'm not speaking in fucking Portuguese. No way. How about coffins? No, I haven't got. How many coffins has anybody got? Jesus Christ. No, I haven't. Pairs of walking boots? No, I don't want any, you fucking pervert. George Clunt. George Clunt. George Clunt. George Clunt. George Clunt.
Oh, it doesn't stop there though. As a member of One Credit Classics Patreon boys, I was entered into a raffle which I subsequently won. I was told a prize was on its way. That prize? This mug. This mug of a game I'd never played, about a video series I'd not yet gotten round to checking out on his channel. So here I am, a man with a mug referencing a game I'd never played, of a TV series I never watched, and now being asked by one of my own patrons to review it. Now, that mug in question refers to a character called George Clunt.
George Clunt! Wake up for me, George. Cartons of flypaper.
And that's as good a point as any to jump into the game with. It is characterful. It is, much like Lex Shrapnel, full of characters whose names appear to have been plucked at random from the ether and sewn together by the hands of God himself. Attached to these names are people who feel like genuine, if simple, caricatures of ne'er-do-wells and dodgy dealers, and it should come as no surprise at all that the man behind all of this was Don Priestley, king of the Spectrum's characterful design book. He might not have had a hit on his hands every single time, but there was always something special about Priestley's games, from Popeye to Trapdoor to Benny Hill. All games I either knew of or owned or at the very least had experience with, and all of them tied to a television property. Realising he was behind Minder, it immediately put me at ease. Minder was actually released in the same year as Popeye, and while Popeye entered my gaming collection at a young age because it was based on a disproportioned sailor who'd clearly had a recent stroke eating spinach that he gained enough strength to beat up a bearded date rapist, in other words, a children's franchise, Minder was not. And to be fair, even if it had made it into my collection at that age, I was 2 at the time. It probably would have flown over my head anyway. The premise of the game follows the rough trajectory of a TV series episode. You are George Cole, you've got $2,000 in your pocket and a warehouse full of random tat, and it's your job to make as much money as possible before the 15-day time limit is up. To do this, you'll take part in what is effectively a text adventure with bonus images, but it doesn't often feel like one. Part of that is due to the fact that George Cole, otherwise known as Arthur, only has a limited number of commands at his disposal. You're not often struggling with the lexicon that the game demands, and in fact, it's surprisingly flexible and well thought out. It doesn't sound very flexible when you're reading the manual, mind. It sounds like a right nightmare, but with a bit of getting used to, it's incredibly easy to remember. Most of what you're typing is part of a conversation with another character in the game world, and the manual lengthily states, there are different types of conversation, but all follow the same general pattern. All conversations have a purpose, to buy, sell, or give instructions, etc., and provided you stick to the point, you should manage well. Your particular pearls of wisdom fit into the bottom 2 lines of the screen, although there are no rules, the sentence will be entered anyway. Don't bother with punctuation, just concentrate on what you mean to say, e.g., although you can do in some cases. For example, if you're asked, how many have you got? You might answer, 100. I've got 100. 100 is all I can let you have. If you are asked, how much? You could answer, I want 25 quid. Or, all dealings are in whole pounds and all numbers must be in digits, i.e. £99. Never, for example, 99 I'll take 100 for 36 each. You will have noticed that you can say what you have to say in just about any way you fancy. And that's just one part of a very, very long manual, and you may be left wondering just what on earth it's banging on about. Essentially, the very first paragraph of this entire thing is all you need to know. That, and a list of the commands found at the back of the manual, of which there are 27 spread across the categories of buying, selling, and speaking to Terry. Those 3 categories are, incidentally, the 3 things you'll be doing throughout the entire game. You go to the Winchester pub, you speak to people with exceptionally strange names. They offer to sell you something, you haggle, you go to dealers, you try to sell that stuff onto them, you haggle, and then in the meantime you try and track down Terry, aka the titular minder, and you ask him to collect the goods, deliver the goods, and various other things. All of this will probably sound pretty simple, and it is, but there's something about it that just works, and I think it's down to the one thing I've been banging on about since the start of this review. It's in how characterful the game is. And that's not just the character's mind, though being able to say whatever you want to them is pretty liberating. Okay, not liberating, painful, but it's in everything else. There's a world here that constantly ticks forward with each action you take. Dealers have different opening times. Terry might be at his flat or he might be at the pub and you desperately need him to go and pick up those wetsuits for delivery, but you're constantly wasting time trying to pinpoint the bugger. Right person, right time, just the wrong location. Maybe you're about to make a killing from a sale when Terry informs you that you've only been given half the money because the goods were actually nicked. The game does for the world of Minder what Rockstar Ate My Hamster did for the world of rock and roll management simulators, and then it provides simple managerial options to the player, but papers over the simplicity with a satisfying amount of charm, character, and good old-fashioned random bullshit. Speaking of random bullshit, the lyrics to Minder, the TV series that is, not the game, they sound like the depraved scrawlings of a stalker. I could be so good for you. I'll be right there by your side. Love you like you want me to. There ain't nothing you can hide from me. I'll be so good for you. I'll be so good for you. Ye who, I am your man. Love you like you want me to. I'll tell you nothing. There ain't nothing I cannot do. I will be so good for you. Don't ask me no questions. I will tell you no lies. Use my shoulder to rest on. I will be right by your side. I will be your ears and eyes. I could be so good for you. I am the one you really need. I will love you like you want me to. I can even help you breathe. I'll be so good for you. I mean, come on, Dennis, that's mental. Anyway, that's Minder. It's a great game and a surprisingly dark one at times. But much like One Credit Classics, Minder has become a bit of a cult classic in my eyes. I can sit here and drink out of my George Clunt mug, finally understanding just what it is that makes someone keep coming back to this game. Whether you have a soft spot for the TV series and its insane theme tune or not, Minder for the ZX Spectrum is a surprisingly involved, cleverly paced and charmingly silly game about buying dodgy gear at a pub and then getting some rubber-faced monkey boy to go and fetch it for you. And if that isn't a clear recommendation of a game, I don't know what is.